Ugasanie is a dark ambient project from Vitebsk, Belarus, which has been active since 2010 and is the brainchild of one Paval Malyshkin. Ugasanie debuted with the Kalima album in 2011. Since then, he has released over 10 full-length albums, as well as various collaborations, an EP, and a few compilations. Paval's music with Ugasanie could best be described as dark ambient with drone, ritualistic, and polar ambient qualities. Polar ambient, as described by writer Michael Barnett, is a sort of style or subgenre falling under the dark ambient umbrella. Polar ambient best fits this criteria of darkness because it focuses on a bitter climate, a climate which often conveys feelings of isolation and cabin fever. Ugasanie began to rise to the top of the dark ambient scene back in 2013 with his album White Silence, which was released by the then still relatively new label Cryo Chamber. Since then, he's released no less than 5 full albums and 2 collaborative albums with Cryo Chamber, and in October of 2020, his 6th full album with Cryo arrived, titled Freedom and Loneliness. Outside of Ugasanie, Paval has also recorded music under the Poltergeist and Silent Universe monikers. Poltergeist being a heavily field recording and experimental project, whereas Silent Universe takes the listener to the farthest reaches of space where only the darkest drones can be found. However, let us focus our attention to the latest album from Ugasanie, which is called Freedom and Loneliness. With that being said, let's talk about the new album from Ugasanie called Freedom and Loneliness. So, probably a good way to start off this review is to openly admit that I haven't had a whole lot of experience with Ugasanie. This is the first physical item I've gotten from the artist, and although I've pretty much been aware of the artist since I believe Border of Worlds came out, I just never picked up any of the physical items, and, it's probably a blunder on my behalf, especially because a lot of people have said that, this is some of the best polar ambient that's been released in the past decade, and, obviously, having 6 albums on Cryo Chamber and 2 full collaborative albums, too, he's obviously, a staple of the label and one of the biggest artists at this point. In the past, I have listened to Ugasanie on Spotify, YouTube, the usual sources, but this is the first actual physical CD I've gotten from the project. And for me personally, getting a CD, tape, or LP will always give me, more motivation to listen to the record more deeply and really examine that, all the little aspects of an album. So needless to say, this is an artist I haven't really spent a whole lot of time, really diving deep into and overly examining. And, like I said, by most people's claims, this is some of the best polar ambient that's come out in the past decade, so we'll see how Freedom and Loneliness stacks up against the competition. The album opens up with a song called Exemption, which, to me, is a pretty standard dark ambient track. It's not, not overly special. It's definitely not overly cinematic. That's one of the interesting things about Ugasanie, is that he really, I don't know if gets away with is the word to use or the phrase to use, but considering the fact that the bulk of the music released in the Cryo Chamber label has that cinematic feel to it, this is an artist that just doesn't really have that at all. It's definitely more like somewhat typical dark ambient and drone and polar ambient style. And it's a decent opening track. It sets the stage well enough, but I just don't feel like it was necessarily the best song to kick the album off with. The second song, on the other hand, which is called Cold Coast, is really freaking good. It opens up with the sounds of what appears to my ears to be icy cold waters flowing through a river or a stream, something like that, and it really, right from the get-go, it really gives off this very immersive feel. You can really feel yourself slowly being transported to this just icy cold barren wasteland. And as the song progresses, humming drones and drifting ambience kind of makes its way in, and there's thunderclaps in the distance. It's a really great immersive track, and I love this one a lot. And just the way that the field recordings are mixed in just really makes it just really realistic. You can just totally picture yourself you're in this cold, frozen wasteland, and there ain't shit you can do about it, and you're probably going to freeze to death. It's just an awesome track, and Personally, this is the one I would have made the opening track, because it's awesome. I mean, this has got to be what the Ugasanie sound is all about, because this is just polar ambient, just perfect right here. The third track, Dead Wasteland, is again kind of a standard dark ambient song. It's good for what it is, but it's just, standard, I guess. And it has a nice meditative quality. It's definitely something I could sleep with. So it definitely serves its purpose. It's a cool song, but again, just, I guess I was kind of hoping for something a little bit more immersive and just deep here, and maybe even a little cinematic, but we don't quite get it in this track. Ritual is the fourth track, and again, it's kind of typical dark ambient drone fare here, but it has more of a ritualistic and, I guess, pagan-esque kind of vibe to it. Shortly into the song, you start to hear some sort of chanting or praying and some sort of, I guess, ritual going down, and it sort of created this mental picture of, like, this nomadic character you see in the front cover, perhaps praying or, having a ritual to his gods or goddesses, and, praying for, his crops to grow or, whatever. But yeah, it definitely had that very, like, special kind of character of, like, this, this one solitary character in this barren wasteland, just, praying for some sort of salvation and for better days to come. Now, the sixth song, Long North Night, is just another great example of just polar ambient really done well. I mean, this song has the sounds of, deep, dark drones and humming ambience, and again, just this really cold feeling. You can feel these really chilly winds hitting you, and it just has this, like, this feeling of just being in this, completely just, situation where, like, you're completely exposed to the elements and there's really nothing you can do about it. You're probably going to freeze to death, and it's just super immersive. It's really great deep stuff on this track, and just really just, again, it's just so able to, like, transport your mind to just, like, these barren wastelands, and just, like, to this place of, like, just unforgiving snowfall, and just, it's really great stuff. And I mean, again, just really, really awesome polar ambient displayed on this track. Well, the next two songs, and I hate to beat a dead horse here, but again, it's just kind of standard dark ambient drone fare here with minimal field recording usage, and while it is immersive and deep sounding stuff that you could, definitely sleep to and all that kind of good stuff and relax, it doesn't really, like, elevate the album to any greater heights or really stand out, or just really, at least to me, it wasn't really anything that I found myself coming back to and re-examining too deeply, because, again, they're just kind of standard stuff, but still decent for what it is. And then we get to the last song, which is called Sorrow, which to me really sounded reminiscent of something you might have found on a Atrium Carcere or Sabled Sun album, or, well, needless to say, something Simon Heath would have ended one of his albums with. It is a pretty, simple piano synthesizer piece, which serves well as an outro to this album, and it definitely kind of, adds a more melodic element here, obviously, to this otherwise very drony and very, standard dark ambient album, which I've already said here, but a cool outro and definitely a good way to, conclude Freedom and Loneliness. Well, let's take a look at the album artwork, shall we? So on the front cover, we have this nomadic-like character, which you can see in the background here, and he has a small shelter, and he is in this barren wasteland, and, well, it's quite a situation he's got himself in, and it makes you wonder where this nomadic character has settled in, and where he's from, and what he's doing here anyway. And then the back cover, of course, we have the track listing, and sort of another just, really barren, mountainous landscape. You can see the nomadic character once again in the background there, hiking around, searching for food, perhaps more items for shelter. And here we have the album credits, and of course we have to mention right away here that Simon Heath did not do the artwork, but rather Eric Oswald did, and it's kind of a, well, he's done quite a few artworks for Cryo Chamber this time, but of course, a lot of times Simon Heath does the artwork, but of course Simon Heath did the mastering here. And this, of course, opens up to reveal a much more bigger, landscape here, and what I really liked about the whole kind of theme to this artwork is that it kind of reminds me of, and spoiler alert here, but me and my wife are finishing up watching the Vikings series on HBO, and it reminds me of that moment in the series where the settlers reach Iceland and Greenland, and they get to there and they realize, like, oh shit, we can't really farm here, and we're fucked, and we need to get out of here because this isn't going to really work out very well. And we haven't finished watching the series yet, so we don't know what happens, but this is what kind of came to my mind, is when they arrive there and they're like, well, this isn't good, this was worse than it was back home, so yeah. That's what kind of came to mind when I saw it. And anyway, hopefully I didn't spoil anything for anyone there. And then the CD itself, of course, is just the album artwork, front cover once again. When all is said and done, Freedom and Loneliness is a pretty solid album. It's a great example of dark ambient drone intermingled with those polar qualities and good usage of field recordings. I feel like if the album had really kind of followed the path that Cold Coast took, it would definitely be an album I'd like a lot more, because I am just of the opinion that polar ambient really just really thrives well when there's just a lot of field recordings up front in the mix, and it just really helps to make everything so much more immersive, and everything just, you can just really just, transport yourself to that frozen wasteland the artist is trying to create. So I think it's really important that artists put a heavy emphasis on those field recordings, having, icy waters, snow falling from the skies, drips, and just, wind, all that kind of stuff. I feel like it really needs to be in a polar ambient album to really make it, a true masterpiece. And while, again, this is a solid album, it's hard to say, how it ranks up against the other Ugasanie albums, because personally, as I said, I haven't listened to them too thoroughly, and, but your taste, if you have enjoyed Ugasanie in the past, I see no reason to pass this by. But if you are like me and you're just coming into this discography now, you might want to backtrack to some of the older albums, because I've heard those are true masterpieces, and those might be the place you're going to want to start, as opposed to Freedom and Loneliness. Well, we've reached the end of this episode of The Inner Sanctum, and I gotta thank you guys for sticking around and listening to me talk about Freedom and Loneliness by Ugasanie. If you liked what you saw, remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and definitely look forward to my next video, which will probably be here in a couple weeks. Alright, thanks again, and I'll see you next time.